everyone. We are here with the creative forces behind King of the Hill. We have Mike Judge, Saladin Patterson, and Greg Daniels, and congratulations to you all on receiving a rare 10 out of 10 from IGN on your new season. It is rare.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. That was a great review. Yeah.
You sound like you read it.
Oh, yeah.
We texted around.
Exactly. Yep.
I did read that one, yeah.
Yeah, probably posted it and put it on my,
Well, we often see Hank dealing with changes, like how convenient and stylish an electric vehicle can be. What are the elements of the perfect topics for King of the Hill to focus on and build episodes around?
Well, when we did this, refresh, I really talked a lot with Mike and Greg about whatever the rules of the universe were that they used for the original. And, and Greg would emphasize to us, small and relatable and funny. Not necessarily in that order, but all three of those being important. And so I think those are still the important ingredients that we start with.
Are there topics that are off the table or?
Big, unrelatable, and boring. Right. I would say, like, for the purposes of like brainstorming and coming up with story ideas, there's nothing off the table, but there's certainly ideas that we'll generate in the room and bounce off of Mike and Greg, and we're like, okay, we're trying to push it here, and we'll have discussions about if it feels like we're staying true to the show and our characters and their world, or if it feels like we're trying to say something. If it feels like we're trying to say something, then that's the opposite direction we want to go in. It has to really be something that's true to our characters and their world.
Absolutely. Well, I have a spoiler here for the finale, so if you're not okay with that, this is your cue. Hank has spent an enormously long time away from one of his favorite things, or a few of his favorite things, propane and propane accessories. So now he is the majority owner of Strickland Propane. I heard that you hadn't always planned this as a storyline. Can you speak to the process of working up to that?
I mean, it's not something like people have asked, did we have that idea when we, first came up with the idea to do the refresh? It was like we always knew we'd bring him back to Strickland. And did you guys have that?
Oh, yeah. I didn't think it was going to go there.
It's one of my favorite episodes.
I think we broke that story around episode 5 of season 15. And it was not something we set out to say by the end of the season, let's have Hank back at Strickland. But once we had lived with the characters for a while and felt that they were getting established in their lives, and we just started asking questions about what would someone like Hank really be wrestling with in retirement? Could he retire? What's Peggy dealing with? And, how does that affect what Hank is dealing with? And we knew the fans were asking, whatever happened with like some of the guys at Strickland. We had Buck in an episode, but we were like, well, let's revisit those guys. And then once we opened that up, kind of felt like, well, maybe Hank could come back a little bit now. He's a little bit more financially secure. Maybe what if he were the owner now? So it really came though from the dynamics we were exploring with the characters.
It's also, I think, a good way to add stakes, because he comes back with a nest egg and he's surrounded by idiots a lot of the time. And you're always wondering, like, is he going to hang on to that, or are they going to somehow convince him out of that nest egg that he worked so hard for?
Right.
Yeah, it was also satisfying to see him come back there in a higher position. It always felt a little bit like, oh man, Hank is really just getting pushed right.
Right.
So that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, that it was satisfying to see him come back on top there.
Yeah.
And I think people want to see more propane in the show.
Exactly.
Propane accessory.
Was there a goal in mind when you came back to the series for Hank to eventually go and work toward, or was this just something that fell into place naturally?
I would certainly say it fell into place in terms of the specifics of him being like a 51% owner at Strickland. When you guys were thinking about bringing it back, was there any end goal for Hank? Was it more just kind of exploring and seeing?
The backstory was that he had gone to work at Aramco to be out of the country. We liked the idea that he'd been out of the country for a while, and then when he came back, he could react to things and, be surprised at what's happened in the world. And, but I think what we didn't take into account was he had achieved this retirement thing, and then it kind of led to a lot of times where he was just sort of puttering around. So it is cool to, get him back active with other characters, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting that you point out that he's a majority owner. That's important. That means Buck is still a 49% owner.
I have a feeling that will lead to storylines.
Exactly. Like Mike said, it's been interesting to explore if that power dynamic between he and Buck were to flip.
Well, we also learned in the finale that Bobby did not move with Hank and Peggy because he found his version of propane, cooking and serving delicious food. What's more, he moved in with Luann and Lucky. Will those characters continue to live on in the background of King of the Hill?
One thing that felt really satisfying when we decided to do a flashback and see, what could have happened during those like Greg said, those in between years while Hank was away at Aramco, was it gave us an opportunity in a respectful way to show that Luann and Lucky were still a part of their lives, and also, were integral in keeping Bobby alive, but also in helping him then pursue what his interests were. It feels good doing that in flashback. We talk about it a lot. We haven't really come up with as satisfying way to maybe address them present day.
Well, it seems like King of the Hill, as long as it's been on, is a tight-knit and loving group. You all seem to have such respect and love for your cast members who have passed. We know that Jonathan Joss, who completed work this season as the voice of John Redcorn, passed away. Though Saladin, I saw in a different interview, you said the door wasn't necessarily closed on the character. Could we see him again down the line?
Again, it's one of those things where if it felt like we would be able to do it in a way to service, the show and the characters and the stories we're trying to tell, and also still honor, the character of John Redcorn, but also Jonathan Joss's passing, we're certainly open to it. I think in that interview I was saying that the episode that does half a minute in season 15, we had completed and done before his tragic passing, and we had certainly at that time left it open the way he could come back. His passing then complicated that a little bit. So it's one of those things where we don't take it lightly, what he represented to the show, and we want to make sure that we honor that and lead with that before we determine if we're going to bring the character back or not.
Jonathan also had stepped in when the original John Redcorn, Victor Aaron, had passed away.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I really enjoyed the flashback because we got to look at not only Bobby's blue hair, but see what was going on in the years that we weren't watching King of the Hill. Do you have any other plans to do other flashbacks or filling in the gaps that we haven't seen?
I think that'd be great. We've been really happy with the response from the fans to that episode in particular. And I think people enjoy getting that peek into Bobby's teen years and things. There are questions we still have ourselves that we're trying to figure out about what was Bobby doing and what could have happened. Did Bobby have other girlfriends during that time? We actually may have an episode coming up, a Christmas episode that may talk about what Brian Robertson's role was with Bobby during that time, because he was the male figure that was staying in the house. He was renting the house from Hank and Peggy. So we're exploring some things, whether we see them in flashback or we learn about them present day from the characters. Not quite sure yet, but that was a very fun storytelling device for us to use. And so, we're still figuring out what's interesting to say.
it's probably a good idea in case Mike ever gets laryngitis to have a Brian Robertson flashback episode in the works.
Do you have, in particular, all of you, favorite moments that you got to touch on in this season that you'd like to share?
Interesting.
I like that flashback episode.
Yeah.
Going back to Strickland, that's
Mhm.
probably my favorite. Spoiler.
We already did it. I took the heat.
It's great.
I like Bobby and Connie, just seeing their relationship,
Yeah.
Be stable and
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing them together, and I don't know, it just seems also both Pam and
Mhm.
Lauren do such a great job
It's such a great job.
doing those same characters at different ages.
Right. Talk about seamless.
Yeah.
I liked the episode where Peggy's dealing with menopause and Hank is trying to figure out how to continue to be the support, that she needs. And I'm trying. I like the episodes where we touched upon things that Hank and Peggy or the other characters are experiencing because of the age that they are. because those feel like ones that we couldn't have done before now. So and I like when the audience is when the audience relates to those.
Like in the original run, we kind of there's something fun about just really embarrassing and humiliating your characters. In animation, especially, and I thought we did it I'm thinking just popped into my head when Peggy enters the beauty.
Right. Yeah.
It's just one of my favorites. So we have a bunch of those moments, I think, as they get older.
Yeah. Exactly.
New, like the menopause, new kind of unique ways to do that.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Speaking of characters embarrassing themselves, the cuddle therapy episode is a good moment too. Mainly because that's the real thing. I mean, that's one of those things where when we discovered that there really is cuddle therapy, we're like, wow, it's almost too good to be true, and it's such a perfect thing for Bill as well. So yeah.
Do you find yourself looking at the news and thinking, oh, that's weird. We got to do an episode.
Every now and then, I think, yeah, something like that happens. It's weird these days. Truth is stranger than fiction with the news these days. So sometimes we're like, well, that's real, but no one's going to believe it.
Do you all have characters in particular you love working around or with or for?
I mean, I love Dale. I think Dale is such a, loony.
But sometimes he's right.
Yes. The stop clock is right twice a day. Yeah.
Yeah. Dale is certainly fun to write for when, because the show has always been so grounded, and Dale is the character that grounds everybody else because we can go kind of crazy with him. So it's usually, we find ourselves, if we have a crazy idea, oh yeah, Dale could do that. I think I've gotten really fascinated by the robot dogs that are out, like not the cute pet ones, but the futuristic, the frightening ones, the futuristic looking ones, like with the little sirens for eyes and heads. And I looked into maybe using one as a guard dog, but it was like, oh, Dale could do that.
All right, well, King of the Hill season 15 is currently airing on Hulu. You can check it out there, and in the future, probably more King of the Hill.